I'm getting the freeze dryer set up again for another batch. I told you on the end of the last batch that I was going to do another batch of apples. By the way, here's the water from that last batch of apples, again about 3/4 of a gallon, which is what we'd expect from that size batch of apples. So this next batch is not going to be apples after all. I think I mentioned multiple times, or at least a couple of times in past videos, that one of my philosophies of life is laziness is the mother of invention. If you already have a way to do something, you could just keep doing it that way. I'm lazy, so I try to find easier ways to do it. So laziness is the mother of invention. One of my other philosophies that I've used since clear back in the commercial world of manufacturing is indecision and procrastination are the keys to flexibility, because you haven't gotten something started, so now you're flexible to start different things. Number one child came to me today and said she would like to have some things freeze dried, some candies. I have nothing in the freeze dryer at this moment because of procrastination. I was putting it off all day. So now I can accommodate those and get them in here right away. So I'm going to get the machine pre-cooled, even though it's candy and doesn't need to be frozen per se. I still want to get the barrel cold so that any water that sublimates out of the candy desublimates and sticks to the wall of the chamber and doesn't go out and through and into the vacuum pump and into the oil. So I still will pre-cool this. It just doesn't need to take that long. The candy doesn't have that much mass. There's not very much water in it. Mainly I'm trying to get the barrel cold. So let's get it started. I'm going to still run it on customize. I'll write myself a note to remind myself to turn it back down, but let's go to 130. I've never done any of it 130, so we'll try that, see what happens. Okay, and then I'm going to start custom and continue. And now I don't need to let it go anywhere near 6 hours. So we'll bypass it after it's cold enough. I'll give that a few minutes to cool, and then we'll get the things that number one child brought to put on the trays and get them started. And they won't take long, they'll be done tomorrow morning. So as you saw, I got all of number one child's candies on the trays. Now the Skittles, they tend to pop and jump. I'm going to cover the back half of the tray with the paper towel to help keep them from exploding out into the tray as much, less cleanup later. I'm going to do the same kind of thing on this one and cover those. I think they'll still act pretty much the same, but with less of it blowing out of the trays. And I'm not sure about these, because I want to be able to see them. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those uncovered, and I'll just probably have to clean out the freeze dryer more. The freeze dryer's been pre-cooling for about 50 minutes now, and it's down to about 14 degrees. So 50. And we'll get these trays in there starting at the bottom. I'm going to cover more of that because they tend to pop. Okay, the thermometer that's underneath, that's touching the barrel, says it's about 25 degrees below zero now. So we don't have to let it cool very much longer before we can start this up. So maybe I'll give it another hour or two. That might be more than necessary, but I don't mind having the chamber very, very cold so that any of the sublimated water desublimates onto the chamber and doesn't go into the pump. So it's going to be starting, it says it has 2 minutes. I'll go ahead and let it go. As soon as the pressure's down to the 500 millitorr and the heaters turn on, I'll go ahead and bypass the whole main dry cycle of 30 hours and go right to the final dry, which will turn the heaters on and basically finish the drying cycle, because there's really not enough water in the candies. So I'm trying to kind of mimic the newer machines that have a candy cycle. As I mentioned on the part of the video that I forgot to turn the audio on, this is a batch for number 1 child. Well, the other number 1 child also wants a bunch of candy to be able to share at work. So they'll bring it over and we'll get that. So I might do a couple of batches or 2 or 3 batches in a row of candy real quick. And it won't take long at all, because once it's down to temperature, I won't need to defrost it, and it won't need much cooling. It'll go real quick between batches. Again, mimicking the newer machines that have that built-in cycle. Yeah, here it goes. Now it'll take about 4 minutes for it to go below the 2500 millitorr, and then it'll take usually about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, sometimes a little longer, for it to get to below the 500. When it's below the 500, we'll skip past the rest of it. And this machine is from 2017, and its software will not be like your newer software. So some of these things are not really the same as the newer ones. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes and jump past that. About 2¼ hours later. Right now it skipped and went to the small batch cycle, and so it's been cycling on and off. Now I'm going to bypass the rest of the main dry cycle and skip to the final dry. And it says it's 109 right now, so it just finished a cycle because the heaters are not on right now. So they will be coming on after I skip the rest of this. So I'm going to skip the rest of this and go to the main dry by hitting the clock. Now I'm in the final dry, and it probably doesn't need anywhere near this 11 hours, but it's probably going to be close to 11 hours before I come back to it in the morning, or late morning. The heaters are back on, and that'll be getting it up to about 130 and then cycling on and off to try to keep them at that temperature. So now the heater system will be cycling on and off to try to keep the trays at about 130 degrees. We'll come back tomorrow and check it. It should be really done by then, because this is way more time than it takes to do the candies. But I'm not going to be up, so might as well let it run. So I'll see you when we come to take them out and check them. So don't go away, we'll be right back. It's the next day and I'm back. These are interesting. I don't know how much of it's because the extra 10 degrees going to 130 versus 120, or how much of it's because of skipping to the final dry, which keeps that heat on for much longer time, versus anything else. Because we've done these kind of gummy bears before, but we've never had this results before. Or maybe I filled the trays too full. Anyway, it's a mess in there. We'll see if we can get them out of there and bag whatever we can. It's interesting. I'm not going to weigh the trays until we go over at the bagging table, because I'm not worried about any moisture in these with this amount of time, because I've gone so far beyond what they need that there's no question. It would be like leaving the food in for 4 days when you know that it takes a maximum of 40 hours or something. Anyway, let's get them out. I'll bypass the rest of the time with the down arrow. Okay, then open the drain valve. Okay, tray 1 won't be a problem. And maybe I overfilled it a bit. Tray 4 won't be a problem. The marshmallows. Tray 2 and 3 are a problem. So they're stuck to the top, I think, or at least touching the top, so hopefully they'll still pull out. That's ridiculous. Okay, well, at least they didn't stay stuck. Well, on the freeze dryer, since there's almost no moisture in there and I'm going to run more batches, I'm going to just put the disc back in place, get it closed, and I'll look to see that I have a ring around there so that that doesn't start to freeze up. Then we'll come back to that later. So now we'll go over to the bagging table and mock these things. So I'm going to turn the tray temperature back to 120 and do it the way I usually do it. So yeah, I wasn't real happy with that. These are ridiculous and strange. We'll get them weighed and then figure out how we're bagging these. Some of them will just be Ziplocs because they'll be shared right away. Now I want to get these off the trays and into bags right away so that they don't have a chance to draw any moisture in from the air. So I'm going to go ahead and just put them in Ziplocs right now, and then we can bag them in a minute. So I'm going to use the heavy-duty freezer type bags. That's still not as good as the Mylar bags. Gonna try to get these out of there first, I think. Wow, that's interesting. These are the Haribo Gummy Bears, and now they don't look like gummy bears at all. I'm not happy with how much they changed, and that's because the high heat, I think. So I won't do that way again. They're more like cotton candy now. And these are the sour ones. Go ahead and just put that in here. And the marshmallows, those are nice. So the main thing I'm trying to do right now is just get them all out of the atmosphere of this room, trying to protect them from the moisture in the air. Giant gummy worms. I'm going to get this right in a bag right now. These are not good bags for long term, but they're really good for gift bags for something that's going to be used right away because they're really pretty. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and seal that right now between, so right across here above those tear-off pieces and below that dot. So I've got that sealed, see, right above the tear-off tabs and then below that hole. And I'm not going to worry about oxygen absorbers in these because there's really nothing to go bad. They're basically sugars, so I'm not really worrying about these very much. And they're not for long-term storage. Okay, that's plenty. So that just holds a few that way because without the gusseted bottom. So then I've got the bigger bag and the smaller bag. That's it for that one. Now we'll move on to another one. So adding some of these on the tray next. We'll see what these do. Rip Rolls, Sour Patch Kids. Yes, I don't know what these are going to do either, but they're pretty big, so I'm going to assume they can get pretty good size. A couple of those, but these are completely different, so should we cut these? Little Sunkist fruit gems. I think if you want to try some of those, we could crowd a few this direction, because there's plenty of space on there this time. Oh, I want to try stretching one. They'll get pretty good size.
Okay, so maybe just that many with a stretched one.
Because if it was like before, they get about this big around. Now it's time to get them out of there and get them bagged with however these are going to be bagged. Anyway, we'll get them out and see what happened to all these things. Well, these did almost nothing. We'll get them over on the bagging table and check them out. Now, what do we have? These are gorgeous. They're like an egg now. I like that. What were these?
Saltwater taffy.
Saltwater taffy?
I don't know the flavors.
Okay, so saltwater taffy comes out gorgeous. And these are the Bitto Honeys.
No.
No?
No, that's these. Those are the...
Oh.
caramel.
Oh, these are the Werther's Chewies.
Yep.
Okay, these are the Bitto Honey. Oh, these are gorgeous. These are like the saltwater taffy, like eggs. And then these are the other Werthers. Yeah, the Werthers with the purple one.
Those are soft.
Okay, those are great. And these basically did nothing. This whole tray except for that one, which is the same as those. This rest of it did, I mean, there's still...
Those
they did a little bit.
Yeah, and if you... They're pretty much...
Yeah, but this whole tray basically did nothing. And these little Starburst, is this the Starburst Chews? Okay,
no, they're normal Starburst.
Oh, Starburst, right, the regular Starburst.
They're like a rock. You can't bite them in half.
Oh, wow. Oh, the one in the bag is still soft and chewy. Or the wrapper.
Oh, wow.
Bring it over. Yeah, that's still... So that prevented what little moisture was in there from escaping.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Regular cookies with chocolate chip cookies, there's the chocolate to cookie ratio. It will soak up all the chocolate and it's just fine. These, there's just too much, so we will just have to eat those. Dang it. That's what that started out as. Oh, that's funny. There's just, oh, that's wonderful. Oh, it smells so caramely. That's great. The caramel flavor of that is fabulous. Some of the candies definitely did more interesting than others. Some really didn't freeze dry enough. And some of these things basically did nothing. That's really interesting. But these, I would definitely do this again, just if for nothing else, visual. Those are beautiful.
Yeah, more.
Okay.
A lot more.
With the Werthers, I did not think the Werthers would work at all. They're fabulous, and the flavor is marvelous. They look great. I think I'd leave a little bit more space between them so that they don't stick together, because it kind of ruins the effect where they were stuck together. The egg shell kind of effect. And these are just absolutely gorgeous. The Bitto Honeys are great. The Laffy Taffies. In fact, I think I like these little Laffy Taffies maybe even better than the ropes. But the ropes were gorgeous and easy to snap into pieces. That's neat. And these also surprised me. I did not expect these to work. I expected these to be an absolute fail. These are great. As soon as we're ready, we'll get the next batch in there. It could be another batch of candy because we can, and we still have more, so why not do more? Okay, so we'll see you then. Another batch of the candy, and this time, now that we know how much some of them move, how big they get, like these get the size of an egg, a good size egg. So these are some of those, like this right here. So it gets good size, so I'm leaving more space in there this time. Let them have room to grow. These didn't move much, they don't need a lot of room. Tray 2 is all Werther's candies, because those things came out great and tasted great. And this time we'd left extra space, hoping that they won't stick together and leave little stuck together spots. If they did a little bit, it's not too bad. And those were really surprising that they did anything. These didn't move a bit. I thought these were going to be an utter mess because of the 2 layers in there. Those worked great and looked good. And tray 4, mostly Laffy Taffy with a little bit of Bit Honeys. So we'll come back and see it tomorrow. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Okay, and since there's so little moisture in there, so little ice, I'm still gonna leave it running for whatever's going in there next. And it really doesn't matter what's going in next. There's so little ice in there, I can run it as a regular batch of anything. That's amazing, the difference in the sizes of these 2 kinds of candies. Same brand, different type. We do need to move quickly because sugary stuff like this will want to pull moisture from the air quickly. That's cool. And after we weigh them, then they can be snacked. Wow, those are beautiful inside. Look at that. That's great. Oh. That's neat. These are beautiful. The freeze dryer is already cold, ready for the next thing. We'll find out what the next thing is on the next video. Thanks for watching. So we got a few more of these. These did very well. So I was happy with those. I think I'm going to cut them in half though and see what that does. Okay, and these are a little different. So these are hard outside and caramel filled on the inside. Since I don't know what these are going to do, I'm only going to do a couple of them. Because this is a hard candy with a gooey filling. And some little peeps, marshmallow peeps. I'm not sure also how big these will get. Kind of snip those apart. Okay, those aren't as tall. Caramel apple pops worked very well. Okay, so not a lot of things on this tray. Gonna try these little guys. So I'm gonna leave them plenty of room to grow. Okay, all the taffies are on that tray. And going to do some of these gummies. Those are going in the freeze dryer. The tray temperatures on the candy earlier was at 130. Now it's back down to the 120. So it should go more like I've done before, where the gummy bears get pretty big, but you can still kind of tell that they were a gummy bear instead of just a giant egg. Okay, we'll be back later. All right, these bears I like better because they stayed as little blobby bears instead of just giant puffs. So some of them you can still kind of tell they're bears, and that's better. The taffy are doing wonderful. The Mikes and Ikes really didn't do much. So they're squishy on the side. I wonder if these need a higher temperature, or if the centers just never dry. So we might put those back in and try those on a second time around. So that's obviously an extremely light batch. So I'll probably load it a little bit heavier on the next one. Oh, that's interesting. Like this one, oh, that is very interesting. Okay, the Mike and Ikes did essentially nothing. I don't know if I were to put them back in, if they would do something. Maybe these need a higher temperature. For now, I'm gonna just put them back in the box and let other people decide. if they want to try them again. But I definitely found that interesting that they did so little. Occasionally some of the candies do nothing. Okay, we'll set that one aside. I'm going to go ahead and put these suckers in bags. That's amazing. I did not expect these to do that. And then I'll be heat sealing them, but I'm not going to bother with an oxygen absorber because these are not going to be staying around long term, and there's nothing to go bad in these sugary things. I just got a new shipment of these just a couple of days ago, just in time to do these. These are really nice. They're great for gifts. I would never consider using these for long-term storage. And for these are a thinner bag, so I'll turn the temperature down, probably go to about down to 4, see if that's low enough. And those are ready to share. I'm going to load the next tray with more candy, and now I've got a better idea for the spacing. I'll know how much I can put on them. We'll load a bunch of these caramel pops on one of the trays. Now we know kind of what will fit. Tray 1 loaded. Get quite a few of those on there. Tray 2, little marshmallows. And another tray of Skittles. This time I will not fill it so full. I'll make sure there's room to grow. Don't go away, we'll be right back on these too. This batch of candy is quite done. With candy batches, they really go quite quickly. You don't necessarily have to do it this way because there's so little moisture. I still like to get the chamber down to at least 40 below so that any of the sublimated water will desublimate onto the chamber. With so little moisture, you're probably not in any big danger of putting such a load through the vacuum pump that you're going to damage it. But this will capture a lot of the moisture, so why not? You could theoretically freeze dry it without ever freezing it, or dry it without ever freezing it, because as you lower the pressure, any moisture is going to boil off, which is part of why the candies balloon up, because you're turning it to steam, essentially. You're turning to vapor, and so you're creating a pressure inside there. At least that's the way I understand it, and I could be completely off. I'm not a food scientist like Ann Reardon. She'd be able to know these things. Anyway, if you're doing multiple batches, or if you're going to do a lot of candy, if you do it consecutive batches, then you don't have to worry about freezing the chamber. It's going to stay cold between batches if you don't bother turning it off. And you're going to have such a low moisture content in the chamber that you also don't have to worry about defrosting it. I'm guessing you could do 10 or 20 batches before you had to bother with defrosting it. There's just not a lot of moisture in candies. So I'm going to bypass the rest of that time. And I'll leave the machine running because I'm going to go right into the apples next. I didn't think there would be enough room to get all these marshmallow ones on there, but they don't expand that much, so I could have gotten a few more on there pretty easily. Oh well, I only had 2 more, but I could have gotten them on there if I'd have known. And same with these, the way they nestle together, those worked out pretty well. And those 2 are kind of stuck. Okay, we'll get these all bagged. And this is interesting, or at least I find this interesting, that 2 halves of the bit of honey seem slightly less volume than 1 whole one. So these won't be going into storage bins. These won't be staying around long term. These will be forced onto other people. They'll be given to the children along with a power drink if they're left alone, and taught how to swear. So that's it for this batch, and as soon as the freeze dryer is defrosted, we'll be on to the next batch. So until the next video, thanks for watching.